Hello and welcome to Stories of Science. Here, we look back on humanity's long journey to understand the world. The questions, the failures, and the breakthroughs that slowly changed how we see the universe and ourselves. We tell science as stories. How Louis Pasteur saved your milk, your health, and the world. Imagine this: what if Louis Pasteur had never existed? What would your milk taste like? And, by the way, it's not just about milk. Without Pasteur, we might not even have vaccines today. It sounds far-fetched, right? But believe it or not, Pasteur's influence on our everyday lives is that enormous. Next time you're enjoying a glass of milk, a cup of yogurt, or even sipping your favorite juice, take a moment to think about the scientific magician behind it all: Louis Pasteur. He didn't need a magic wand. He had his laboratory and a series of groundbreaking experiments that would forever change how we understood the microscopic world. But Pasteur wasn't just about making food safe. He was the person who made invisible dangers visible, then turned them into something controllable. His work revolutionized how we look at microbes and, in turn, reshaped modern medicine, food production, and even the way we prevent disease. Now, you may be thinking, how did Pasteur manage to accomplish all of this? Well, this story begins in a small, unassuming town in France. Pasteur was born in December 1822 in Arbois, a town in the Jura region of France. His family wasn't wealthy. His father worked as a leather merchant, and their home was more about leather than laboratory beakers. But none of this deterred young Louis from dreaming big. Even as a child, he was fascinated by the world around him, though at first, his passion was art, especially painting. But here's the thing: many great scientists, like Pasteur, began with a love for the arts. They say that the creative thinking you develop as an artist often translates well into scientific thinking. And Pasteur was no different. Eventually, he shifted his focus from painting to chemistry. His eye for detail, honed through his artistic background, would serve him well in the world of science. Once in Paris at the University of France, Pasteur quickly found his calling in chemistry and physics. But his work wasn't always in the field we now associate him with: microbiology. In fact, he didn't dive into the world of microbes right away. Initially, his work was focused on areas like crystallography and optics. At first glance, these areas, crystals and light, might seem far removed from the study of bacteria, but this was the perfect training ground for Pasteur. His early work taught him how to observe the world carefully, how to conduct experiments with precision, and how to analyze results meticulously. Had he not worked in these seemingly unrelated fields, who knows if Pasteur would have ever had the patience and focus to study the tiny, invisible creatures that later became his lifelong obsession? In fact, many of Pasteur's initial studies in crystallography and optics laid the groundwork for his future breakthroughs in microbiology. These fields taught him how to be patient, thorough, and observant, traits that would serve him well in studying the tiny, often invisible world of bacteria. The skills he honed during his research on crystals and light would later help him unlock some of the most important discoveries in the history of science. So, when we talk about Pasteur and how he changed the world, we can't overlook his early, seemingly unrelated research. These foundations, though they appeared trivial at the time, were the very bedrock upon which his great microbial discoveries were built. Think about it: sometimes, the seemingly random or unrelated pieces are actually leading us towards something revolutionary. Who knows? The next big breakthrough in science could come from someone doing what seems like the smallest, most insignificant research. Now, let's talk about the big breakthrough: Pasteur's work on sterilizing food. Imagine if you could heat up your food just enough to kill all the bacteria that could make you sick. It might sound like magic, right? Well, it wasn't magic. It was Pasteur's work with pasteurization that changed everything. He didn't have a magic wand, but what he did have was a laboratory and a series of experiments that led to his invention of pasteurization, which is still used today in milk, juice, and even wine production. Before Pasteur, people believed that fermentation was some mysterious force of nature. Bread would rise, wine would ferment, and it all seemed like magic. But Pasteur peeled back the layers and showed the world that fermentation wasn't some magical process, it was microbes at work. He demonstrated that microorganisms were responsible for turning sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This wasn't just a revelation about fermentation, it was a revelation about the power of microorganisms and how they could be harnessed to our advantage. Pasteur's work led to pasteurization, the process of heating liquids like milk to kill harmful bacteria. This method didn't just make food safer to consume, it extended shelf life and improved food quality. Thanks to Pasteur, milk that could have gone sour in a few days could now be safely consumed for much longer. Think about it, without Pasteur, your milk might be harboring dangerous bacteria, and the juice you love might not be as safe to drink. But thanks to him, pasteurization became the standard, ensuring that we could safely drink milk, juice, and even beer. His impact on the food industry can't be overstated today. His pasteurization method is still a cornerstone of food safety. And it wasn't just about food safety. Pasteur's research also revolutionized the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the development of vaccines. Before Pasteur, diseases like rabies were virtually untreatable. If you were bitten by a rabid animal, there was almost no hope for survival. But Pasteur's breakthrough came in the form of a rabies vaccine. He used a weakened version of the virus to create an inoculation that prevented the disease. This wasn't just a win for rabies, it set the stage for modern vaccinology. Pasteur's vaccine work laid the groundwork for all future vaccine research, providing us with the tools to combat some of the world's deadliest diseases. But Pasteur didn't stop at human health. He extended his research to the health of animals as well. For example, he developed a vaccine for chicken cholera, a deadly disease that decimated poultry farms. His vaccine saved countless chickens, and in doing so, helped save the poultry industry. Pasteur's work didn't just change medicine, it changed the entire field of microbiology. Today, when we take vaccines, use antiseptics, or even study bacteria in the lab, we're standing on the foundation that Pasteur laid. His work has saved millions of lives, both human and animal, and has paved the way for modern science and medicine. Louis Pasteur was, without a doubt, one of the most influential scientists in history. His contributions to food safety, medicine, and immunology changed the world forever. Without him, we might still be living in a world where bacteria and viruses wreak havoc on our lives. So, next time you drink a glass of milk, enjoy that yogurt, or receive a vaccine, remember to thank Louis Pasteur. His scientific magic made our modern world safer, healthier, and more connected to the invisible forces that shape our lives. And without him, we wouldn't have the safe, scientifically driven world we live in today. Imagine a world where Pasteur never existed. What would your milk taste like? Wait, don't grimace just yet. Picture this: every time you open your fridge, instead of fresh, cold milk, you're greeted by a sour, rancid smell. Or maybe you're at a bar, ordering a pint of beer, and you take a sip only to find a strange, fermented taste that makes you think twice before taking another sip. Yikes, right? You'd probably start avoiding beer altogether. But thanks to Pasteur's groundbreaking research, we don't have to live in a world where food goes bad at the drop of a hat. He saved us from the nightmare of spoiled food and brought about a revolution in food safety that still impacts us today. Pasteur wasn't just some lab coat-wearing scientist. He was a true hero of the food industry. Before his discoveries, food preservation was, let's say, pretty basic. Either you shoved it in the fridge or just let it naturally ferment on the counter. And what did that lead to? Bacteria throwing a full-blown party in your food. That meant food poisoning was just around the corner, lurking in every bite you took. But Pasteur, with his sharp scientific eye, saw the real culprit: microorganisms. And, in a stroke of genius, he made a game-changing discovery: fermentation and spoilage weren't natural forces of some higher power, but the work of those invisible microbes. He introduced pasteurization, a process that heats liquid food to a precise temperature to kill off harmful bacteria. That's right, thanks to Pasteur, those sneaky bacteria no longer get to throw their microbe parties in your milk. Now, food could be stored safely, staying fresh and healthy for longer. Every time you grab a carton of milk, a bottle of juice, or even a cold beer, you're reaping the rewards of Pasteur's brilliance. But hold up, that's just the beginning. Pasteur's influence went far beyond just making food safer. His work completely transformed the way food industries around the world operate. Next time you grab that carton of milk from the supermarket, think about how it stays fresh and delicious, not because it's magic, but because of Pasteur's little experiment that changed everything. Imagine, just for a second, if Pasteur hadn't done what he did. We might have ended up with the great food decay crisis. Imagine walking into a grocery store where everything smells like spoiled milk and rotten fruit. Pasteur saved us from that stinky nightmare, and if you like yogurt, you can thank him for making sure it's both tasty and safe to eat. But Pasteur wasn't just a savior of food, he also helped spark a public health revolution. Ever thought about the time you had a cold and got a vaccine? Well, Pasteur's work laid the foundation for everything you know about fighting diseases with vaccines. Before his discoveries, diseases like rabies were virtually untreatable. But Pasteur developed a way to weaken the rabies virus and inject it into a healthy person, teaching their immune system how to fight it off. That discovery opened the doors for modern vaccines, and since then, we've been able to protect ourselves from deadly diseases. Every time you get a vaccine today, whether it's for the flu or measles, you're benefiting from Pasteur's legacy. He made it possible for us to fight disease in ways we never thought possible. Pasteur gave humanity the ability to protect itself from the worst viruses and bacteria, and, frankly, he became the real superhero behind the scenes. But here's the kicker: Pasteur didn't just stop with food and health. His research had a massive impact on many industries we don't even think about. Take mining and metallurgy, for instance. Pasteur discovered that microorganisms could actually speed up chemical reactions and improve product quality. Talk about a chemical catalyst. His research was helping industries innovate, improve efficiency, and cut down on waste. The ripple effects of his work were felt everywhere. In fact, you could say Pasteur was the superhero of the Industrial Revolution. His discoveries didn't just keep food safe, but they also powered industries forward. Whether it was improving the food we eat, advancing vaccine development, or making industries more efficient, Pasteur's work was a cornerstone of progress in every sector. Today, his influence is still everywhere. You won't find a corner of science, medicine, or industry that hasn't been touched by Pasteur's work. Every time you sip your ice-cold juice or enjoy a creamy yogurt, you're tasting the safety and freshness he brought to the world. Think about it: without Pasteur's contributions, we might still be living in a world where food went bad faster than we could eat it, and deadly diseases spread unchecked. Instead, thanks to his genius, we can live healthier, safer lives. Pasteur turned what could have been an unsanitary, unsafe world into one where science protects us every single day. So, the next time you drink your milk or get a vaccine, take a second to appreciate Louis Pasteur. Without him, our food might be spoiled, our vaccines might not exist, and we might still be in the dark about the dangers lurking in our food and water. Pasteur wasn't just a scientist, he was a true lifesaver, and his legacy is all around us, every day. Imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table, ready to enjoy a glass of fresh milk, a bowl of yogurt, or a delicious piece of fruit. Now, picture this: every bite, every sip is a ticking time bomb of bacteria just waiting to make you sick. What a nightmare, right? But thanks to Louis Pasteur, that's not a world we have to live in. Pasteur didn't just change science, he revolutionized the way we look at food safety and public health. His work on bacteria and disease transmission gave us the tools we needed to control epidemics and save lives. You see, Pasteur didn't just theorize about germs, he proved their existence and showed us how they spread. His discoveries laid the foundation for everything from antibiotics to vaccines, making us all safer in ways we often take for granted. For example, in the midst of an outbreak, Pasteur was one of the first to advocate for isolation and sterilization methods to slow the spread of disease. Imagine if we hadn't had his work guiding us during health crises, how many lives might have been lost? But let's take a moment to really appreciate what Pasteur did for the world of medicine. His research didn't just lay the groundwork for vaccines, it made them possible. Before Pasteur, diseases like rabies were considered a death sentence. But Pasteur created the first rabies vaccine, opening the door for the vast vaccine industry we have today. It's safe to say, without him, the fight against deadly diseases would have been significantly delayed. And let's not forget about food safety. Without Pasteur's revolutionary pasteurization process, every bottle of milk, every glass of juice, and every bottle of beer could be a potential health hazard. It's not just about keeping food fresh, it's about keeping us safe. He found a way to heat liquids to a specific temperature, killing harmful bacteria without changing the taste or quality. If you've ever enjoyed a glass of milk or your favorite drink without worrying about the germs lurking inside, you have Pasteur to thank. You might think vaccines and safe food are just the normal state of affairs, but that's only because Pasteur changed the game. He gave us the tools to protect ourselves from diseases that once decimated populations, and he made it possible for us to enjoy food without fear of contamination. But Pasteur's impact didn't stop there. His research reached far beyond medicine and food. In industries like mining and metallurgy, his discoveries helped improve production efficiency and reduce waste by showing how microorganisms could accelerate chemical reactions. Pasteur wasn't just saving lives, he was boosting industries, making them more efficient and less wasteful. Pasteur's legacy is woven into nearly every aspect of modern life. When you get a flu shot or any other vaccine, you're benefiting from his work. The next time you open a bottle of milk or pour yourself a glass of juice, know that Pasteur's work is keeping it fresh and safe. His influence reaches beyond the lab and continues to touch our lives every day. But Pasteur's life wasn't all smooth sailing. Imagine being a brilliant scientist, changing the world with your discoveries, only to be caught in the political turmoil of your time. That's exactly what happened to Pasteur. As a member of the French nobility during the French Revolution, his political connections put him in the line of fire. Even though he was a hero to science, he was considered an enemy by the revolutionaries. He was arrested and nearly lost his life not because of his science, but because of the political climate he couldn't escape. Despite all the political upheaval, Pasteur didn't back down. He continued his work, pushing forward with his experiments, making sure his discoveries would live on to benefit future generations. It wasn't an easy path, but he remained steadfast in his dedication to science. Ultimately, Pasteur's legacy wasn't just about surviving political storms, it was about the unwavering impact of his work. His methods, his discoveries, and his unrelenting pursuit of truth reshaped modern medicine and food safety. Today, whenever we take a vaccine, enjoy safe food, or stay protected from deadly diseases, we are living in the world he helped create. Even though Pasteur didn't see the full extent of his contributions during his lifetime, his work lives on. From the pasteurized milk you drink every day to the vaccines that protect you from disease, Pasteur's influence is all around us. He didn't just make our world safer, he changed the way we think about life, health, and science itself. So, the next time you sip a safe, cool glass of milk or get your annual flu shot, take a moment to thank Louis Pasteur. He's the one who made it possible. His life wasn't just about experiments in a lab, it was about shaping the future, ensuring that we could live healthier, safer lives. And that's a legacy that will never fade. The people who change the world usually just think one step deeper. If this story made you see things differently, hit like, subscribe, and save it. See you in the next story.